Welcome back, everybody, into Bill's Chat. I am Josh McCarty. With me tonight, as always, is Luka. Luka, for the first time in the history of Bill's Chat, we are going to do a post-game show after a road playoff victory. How the hell are you doing tonight? As I fix my camera.
Thank God. Thank God they finally won this elusive, I don't know if you're not listening, I'm doing air quotes, elusive road playoff win.
Yeah.
That's been just, it's been in the thorn in the side of Josh Allen since 1992 that he couldn't get that, Bills road playoff win that was talked about to, kick a dead horse all week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to win this one. And I will be honest, it feels a lot better sitting here now than what I envisioned it would have felt like beforehand. Confidence was definitely there, not of an extreme level, but of a firm level going into this game. You were doing heat checks all week in a Discord we talk in, and before this game this morning, I gave you a 7 out of 10 confidence. I don't think this game was the game I necessarily thought for, we'll call it 55 minutes it was going to be, but we'll obviously talk about that final five and kind of how that might have just hit the nail on the head there. But overall, it feels great to do this because the win feels sweeter than I imagined it would because of how they did it, what all transpired to get that win, and then kind of how perfectly it will erase what a lot of this, I'm going to call it script, but it's, writers in media rooms and stuff like that, the talking points that were just beat to death at length going into this game. It nullified all of them. I joked with someone, I'll say it now, it's probably a little, backhanded, but Ryan Clark has to be furious as he deletes all his notes from that game because it just absolutely depleted anything he could possibly critique, criticize, whatever it was going into it. If you're not aware, Ryan Clark just seemed to have a very singularly focused and driven point to this game and how it truly was on the balance of one man's shoulders. And he himself as a former player forgets that there's a lot more than just a quarterback that delivers a win in a football game. So yeah, it feels great sitting here that they got the win overall, for it to be over a very, very tough Jags team. And what a lot of people believe that one of these two were probably going to be able to make a deep run. It feels now like getting that monkey off their back when it comes to just getting a win with how it felt going into it for this team. That could hopefully loosen things up a little bit. And we might see this team yet again make another run for hopefully that ever elusive Super Bowl appearance that a Josh Allen team has yet to do in his career.
Yeah, you mentioned it. It was an uncomfortable game. And there were moments in this game that they just started feeling like, okay, this is gonna add up to be, "Oh, we're gonna regret that when the game's over. We're gonna regret that when the game's over. Oh, that's a missed opportunity." And to me, it all started, and we're gonna get into all this, but there was a sequence at the end of the half starting with a Brandon Cooks drop on a perfectly thrown seam ball that I will say, Bill's goggles off. I never saw that ball hit the ground. I did come on halftime and say, "Brandon Cooks, I didn't see that ball hit the ground, but you can't even give the referee a chance to overturn that. You lose the benefit of the doubt when you start bobbling the ball." So as much as I think that that was probably a bad use of review, that's on Brandon Cooks. You got to clean catch that. But anyway, the next sequence of plays, the Bills drive down, they punt instead of going for it on fourth down, which I was largely okay with because I wanted them to go into halftime with the lead, and then the sequence of plays that led to the craziness of the Jaguars going from their own 1 yard line with no timeouts to basically getting into field goal range and getting a gift from the referees to get a field goal attempt. Ultimately, to see Cam Little, the kicking god, apparently miss a field goal, which I didn't know he could do legally. But yeah, so that whole situation just felt like there's so many different ways I want to go with this game. So I'm going to give you a broad question. What did we learn about these Buffalo Bills today, Luca?
They're resilient. They don't give a shit what you feel about them. And Josh Allen is exactly what we know him to be. And he is a superhuman alien freak that even when multiple injuries and a lot of adversity hits him in the face or knee or hand, he will still have the ability to overcome it and get you the win when all things are kind of back against the wall, up against you. I think the the term I would come up with that we learned about these Bills following this win would be they are truly in that mentality monster kind of territory. They are mentally strong, tough, capable of doing whatever they need to, and unwilling to accept a result until zeros are on the clock. I think that's the reality of it for this team. And in today's game, truly, they just kept taking punch after punch from the Jags up until the very end. And they were resilient and capable of doing everything they could to make sure they finished on top. And I definitely give them that mentality monster label, which I will say is something I am not fond of calling a lot of teams lightly, just mainly because I have a team that I'm a fan of very close to my heart that is like defined as mentality monsters for in another sport and things like that. And it's like you have to hit a certain level of success, resilience, and kind of just mental tough attitude in order to get that label from me. And I would say that this game and this team truly has hit the point where I am willing to label them just a mentally tough and capable team with anything adversity wise.
What a weekend for football it's been. Now, just for those of you out there listening, we don't know who the Bills play next week. We are currently recording this like we usually do during the Sunday night football game. It's currently 3-3 Patriots and Chargers, so that will obviously determine what happens next. We figured it was okay to start recording because our head is where your guys' head is. Let's dissect this Bills game. We'll worry about next week's opponent when next week gets here. We have Wednesday's live show and all that stuff to get into that. So, let's start with Josh Allen. I had a request sent to me from my buddy Brendan, who works with me, and he is an avid listener of this show. Already told me he can't wait for tomorrow's show. Became a fan of the Bills largely because of this show. Lives in St. Louis, was a Rams fan. They broke his heart when they left, was a free agent, and we love the fact that he used our show as a reason to start liking the Bills. His request was, do we believe that today's performance is enough to quiet the Josh Allen haters? I'll let you start, Luka.
No. I'm gonna go ahead and say no, and I'm laughing, and I hope no Bills fan is upset with me in this very second about giggling to this question. I am giggling to this question because haters are gonna hate. Like there is always, and I mean always, a way to find a narrative to hate on an individual in a sporting event. Like that is just, I mean, there had in the history of athletics, history of sports, there has to be every athlete ever has to be hated on in some capacity. I mean, let me put it this way. There are people out there, and it's not just one or two. I mean, there's a group of people, and I will respect anyone for just having the opinion they have because they are entitled to have it, that believe Wayne Gretzky doesn't deserve to be the greatest of all time due to the era he played in and how goaltenders were basically glorified accountants and the goaltending position hadn't evolved yet. Like you can find an angle to support your, critique or your argument. And I will just say that one, that argument is ridiculous. But two, it's like the point here is if you are a true Josh Allen hater and you watch this game, is this going to help your case? Absolutely not. There is nothing about this game that's going to help your case. But you will still be out there trying to preach the word of the Lord to you. That is, Josh Allen is not good enough and he's overhyped and blah, 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 blah. Like, there are people out there that still want to hate on Mahomes. There are people that still want to hate on Tom Brady. I mean, Josh and I know of an individual that will beat the drum to absolute death about how Peyton Manning forever should always be known as greater than Tom Brady. It's a meme in some circles that we socialize in. And you can, it's a justified argument, but at the same time, it's an opinion. It's not anything fact. And depending on your criteria, it's also ridiculous. So it's one of those things that it's what makes sports amazing too, as well. I will say it's like when you are able to and capable of creating an argument for whatever side you want to support, and you find it in a friendly fashion, a way to disagree and or agree with someone else, like it can become a wonderful thing, as a social dynamic of it all that is beautiful and it's great. But Josh Allen haters are going to live forever and ever. That's just the reality of it, and this game will not do anything to stop that. And I Josh just watched what I watched 30 seconds prior. That is why he's holding his head there.
We are both, obviously, like many of you, hate watching the Patriots because we're rooting for the Chargers, because that is the Bills' only chance of getting another home game. Plus, it leads a potential Bills-Steelers matchup next week. I am not too proud to ask for the easiest path of resistance. Although many people would say, Luka, and many people did say, that if the Bills get past the Jaguars, that would be their toughest matchup in the AFC. And yet here we are. The Jaguars are gone. And we'll see what happens with the Bills. With Josh Allen, he did knock some things off the checklist today. Oh, he can't win a road playoff game. We laughed about that. It's like, so what are we actually saying? He can't beat Patrick Mahomes? Because there's a lot of guys that can't beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I realize he lost one to Deshaun Watson in his second year, his first ever playoff game. He was a pup. It showed. He, unlike the last two seasons, where fairly or unfairly, the criticism of Josh Allen was he did have the ball late with a chance to win the game and did not get it done. Now, Bills fans, most sane people would say, well, if Diggs catches a ball, if Dawkins makes a block, if Kincaid catches a ball, if Tyler Bass makes a kick, things could be different. But the end result is Josh Allen got the ball back with plenty of time, and the Bills did not capitalize. So the Bills got the ball back today with 4 minutes left, down by 4, which is interesting when it comes to how our predictions were this week. We'll get into that later, Luka. And the Bills take the lead and then ultimately close it out on defense. So Josh Allen got that checked off of his list. And then this isn't about Josh Allen, but Sean McDermott's defense showed they could make a clutch stop in the playoffs, which was nice to see too. But I'm with you. People that want to hate on Josh Allen are going to continue to move the goalpost. It is my least favorite thing about sports arguments, life arguments, political arguments, whatever it is. People get so married to their original opinion that they would rather be able to continue to make the case that they are correct versus being like, you know what? I said this before I knew this, this, and this. And ever since I said that, this, and this has happened. And like, holy cow, I was wrong. Like, God forbid, we're human and we're imperfect. It's okay to be wrong. That's why it's exhausting to get on social media sometimes, because there's people that'll still tell you that LeBron James is overrated. And it's just like, good Lord, people. People are going to hate on Josh Allen. I have news for you. Josh Allen could go on to win the Super Bowl this year and be Super Bowl MVP. There will be a collection of haters that say, cool, go win another one. He'll win 4. And they'll say, Brady has 6. So they're always going to move the goalpost. You can't let yourself get caught up in that. But I understand the question, Brendan, because specifically what the national media sounded like this week, what Ryan Clark sounded like this week, I do think the expectation is still there that given the landscape of the AFC, that Josh Allen should make it out of the AFC. But I think today, a lot of us that push back against that, something that was on display was, this is not an overly talented Bills team. There are other ways they can win games, but on days like today where James Cook's not going, it's tough sledding out there, and they have to be perfect, and they were perfect in the kicking game. They made the final stop, and Josh Allen played about as good as can be. Let's talk about that last sequence, Luka. I think that was probably the biggest talking point after the game, and certainly would have been had the Bills gone on to lose the game in overtime. So the Bills get the ball after an amazing quarterback sneak that goes 10 yards, looks like it's a touchdown, gets overruled, and is down at the 1-yard line. Jaguars at this point are out of timeouts. The Bills have all 3 in their pocket. There's a minute left. At the time, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I even tweeted this out. The Bills need to find a way to run about 40 more seconds off the clock before scoring here. I'm going to let you talk through it here, because I know a lot of people are thinking that McDermott mismanaged that he survived, but man, he gave Jacksonville too much time. And I'm seeing a lot of smart people who I respect saying that too, not just like Bills fans that, may have had too much to drink. I think that's a very common thought. you and I talked about this before the show, so I know what you're going to say. You know what I'm going to say. At the time, I wish they had done that. As the day has gone on, I've and I have access to the results, so maybe that's impacting my decision. I'm understanding why they didn't. We talked through it, but the floor is yours, Luka. Did they bumble the last possession?
No, no, not in my opinion. At the time, even in the moment, I was fully understanding that once they were marked down short, Jacksonville uses their third and final timeout to avoid the 10-second runoff, which absolutely they should be doing. I was expecting the Jags to do exactly what they did. Hey, let them score, let them in, stand up off the snap, just no resistance. We need the ball back. And it's one of those sequences where I can understand, and in the time again, I will just say take the damn points, just take it for what it is. They are now officially out of timeouts. You are putting pressure, and this is what I believed in the moment. You are putting pressure of something that a first-time coach has never experienced in their life. A quarterback that has only 2 other playoff games has never experienced in his career, that I can even recall, even going back to when he successfully came back, or just say he and the Jaguars successfully came back against the Chargers in that pretty epic first half, second half weird game that happened. What was that? 2021, 2020, whenever it was. Digress. The explanation and reasoning, though, is my head is at a place where, okay, if you want to live in a space and reality that is take a knee, all right, let's say that, or burn a play, a play that will run the clock. Obviously, you can't just spike the ball. That would be really dumb and stupid. Run a play that runs, the 40-second play clock down, and then from there, quote unquote, take your points. In theory, sounds great, but here's the catch. Okay, let's say you take a knee. The ball, you have to at least have lost a yard in a kneel down. Now you're 2 yards away, and it is second and goal with around, at that point in time, you're 54 seconds, so you're down to 14 seconds. We'll call in theory you're 15 seconds because you're probably calling the timeout with 1 second left. So you are now second and goal from the 2, 15 seconds left. Say you go for a tush push. Yes, you saw them just do a monster one, but they stuff you there. Now it's third and goal at the 1, and you're going to do it again. Fumbled snap. You're including variables that things could go wrong for you. You're increasing the possibilities that something wrong can go for you. The other thing that you even brought up that is kind of there, but also, it's not at the forefront of my mind is, God forbid, Deion Dawkins false start. God forbid, illegal formation randomly, illegal motion because Gilliam moved towards moved up when motioning, whatever, right? Like a penalty draws you back 5 yards. And now you're in a situation on second and goal at the 7. And you're like, how the hell did we get here after it was first and goal at the 1? Like, why are we now in this situation? And now you got 2 looks or 3 looks to essentially try to score in a much more difficult position. There are outcomes that negatively impact what you're doing there, that it just doesn't make sense to do that rather than take the points, put the pressure on a team. It's not like you're handing the ball back to Mahomes and Andy Reid. You're handing the ball back to Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. If you're sitting there fearing Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence doing a 50-second drive with no timeouts against you, down 3, what are we doing here? Like, that's the mentality. If you are the better team, you got to be like, hey, we'll take the points if you're going to give it to us. Now beat us on your terms. And what I thought was perfect was Liam Cohen, I think, in that play, ensuing play after the kickoff, showed a little bit of inexperience of understanding the moment. And instead of kind of asking Trevor Lawrence to take a very high percentage, easy play to get things moving on that drive, whether it's, a quick designed out on the boundary to maybe pick up, let's just call it 4 yards, whatever it is, stop the clock, or something else designed to get them into the drive, get them going. From there, Trevor Lawrence can be a little bit more comfortable and in rhythm. You're asking him to already pick up a little bit of a chunk play over the middle of the field, something that kind of, in my opinion, feeds right into the McDermott defense hands. Like that's where he wants you to go. He wants you to cover. Like it's just the premise. He has his safeties understanding everything in front of them. And then from there, you just have this nice little arc and cloud with the linebackers and corners that are just covering that middle space, median space to close it down and do everything you do. It's batted pass by Trey White in the hands of Cole Bishop. GG, have a good one. We're going home and still in this thing. Like you just showed exactly, being Liam Cohen, that is, why a little bit of inexperience will go a long way, because you failed to understand that Trevor Lawrence, and anyone for that matter, I would like to see Joe Brady and Josh Allen understand on 1st and 10, hey, high percentage, quick one. Let's get in rhythm here. Let's get this drive going. It's all about, you hear a lot of people talk about, it's that first down that's the most crucial one. It doesn't mean you need to pick it up on the very first play. Like you just, that once you get that first down, now you're rolling. Now you're in rhythm. Now you get going. Put all of that pressure on the other team. Take the lead if they're going to give it to you and move forward with it. That is it. I think they did it right. I believe, and I might be in a minority with it from in the moment, I believe that was the right way to go about it. And I'm happy to see that McDermott, out there, I saw even some where it goes, McDermott hasn't learned his lesson yet. This will cost him. I'm like, I fully disagree. You can live in, if that was Andy Reid and Mahomes across the field, maybe I would even have found myself going, let's bleed a little clock here. Let's do something that has, a handoff to James Cook and find that wall that doesn't exist at the line of scrimmage. Let's do something that's like, hey, let's bleed a little bit more time. I'm not living in a fear bunker with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. That's ridiculous. If you are fearing that, to me, you are almost coming down a standard, not elevating your standard and believing that you are the better team. So I like how everything was handled overall at the end. I think that's exactly the way to take that.
If it was a tie game and the Bills are just playing for a field goal, I think that point has way more merit, because that's an old school extra point. You take your chances and you go. Or if the Bills were down by 1 or 2 points, same thing. In this scenario, though, I'm with you where I don't think it's as easy of a layup. I understand both sides of the argument. I truly do. But I just think for a team that was sloppy today, particularly early on, and you have to remember, this is game on the line situation. The crowd is going to be as loud as it is all day, and your offense is right next to the crowd in the end zone. So if there's ever going to be a false start or a miscommunication, that's the time that could happen. And boy, oh boy, would you have regrets if you ever wound up back on the 5 or 6 yard line because you got greedy about when you wanted to take the lead in the final minute. And then I just, I don't know that there's a very easy answer. I'm not a fan of the kneel down, like you mentioned, because you got to go backwards. I have no interest in going backwards in that situation. I think you're assuming too much with these quarterback sneaks. I watched last year's AFC Championship game. I think the idea of Josh Allen just catching the ball and kind of diving sideways or falling down, that's kind of drawing a play up in the dirt. I don't know that a team really practices that. And again, do you want your team running kind of a create on the fly play to burn 40 seconds? But what if somebody jumps? There's just so much that can go wrong. Ultimately, it all worked out. And I hate to be like revisionist history, like, oh well, they went for it on 4th down, they didn't get it. It was a dumb decision. No, I don't like to be like that, but it did work out. McDermott trusted his defense. It worked. Let's talk about McDermott. What did you think of his day, Luka? I thought there were several instances today where he had some really strong points, and I think there were several instances today where he had some controversial points. And one of my keys to today's game was I needed McDermott to be an advantage over Liam Cohen. He was not taking on Spagnuolo and Andy Reid and Mahomes. This was, as you've already said, this is Liam Cohen. This is Trevor Lawrence. I need my coach, who's been in 14 playoff games, to look like he's the experienced coach.
Yeah.
And I thought there were several instances. The challenge in the first half was very sharp. I thought there was a timeout in the first half that he used to save his team a delay a game when Josh Allen and the offense had no idea the clock was burning down. That was sharp. The challenge that ultimately got overturned was his defense making a stand at the goal line after Ray Davis had fumbled the kickoff. And if his defense doesn't make a stop there, now it's 14-3, and it kind of feels like the floodgates are open. So what a massive stop by his defense. The flip side, and I don't think these are obvious mistakes, but I think they're controversial. Going in before the half, he has a punt on like a 4th and 4 situation from about the 45-yard line, the one that gets down to the 1-yard line, but somehow the Jags still get in field goal range. Thanks, refs. And then he also had another field goal situation, which, by the way, kudos to Matt Prater, where it was like 4th and 4, and McDermott decided to kick the field goal because it felt like in his mind points were going to be at a premium. Josh may have gotten dinged up on the play before then too, and he was just like, get off the field. And then we just talked about the end of game scenario. I come away thinking that McDermott was an asset to the Bills today. I think he was a calm figure on the sidelines. He looked in control the entire day. And, I don't want to, I'm not going to oversimplify it and say he won, so he had a good day. I don't have a problem with the punt/field goals on 4th down. I never felt like the Bills were like that dynamic offensively where a 4th down was a layup. And I don't know. I come away thinking McDermott had a pretty good day. What do you think about McDermott's performance?
I loved it. I'm going to say it that way. So what I will start with is the points that you brought up as a potential argument point for where he wasn't great, or maybe you would like to see things differently. The key thing, though, that you bring up that I think is the absolute valid thing you have to remember is, look, 4th and 4, when you have Josh Allen, who the previous drive, if memory serves me right, was the touchdown drive that he goes in, but also hyperextends or does whatever that occurs to his left leg and knee. It's like you do not have, and it was very evident, you do not have your normal Josh Allen situation right now. 4th and 4s, when Josh Allen, we'll call it, let's call it torso down, is good. 4th and 4, you're going for that. And I believe I would put my money on it saying Sean McDermott, if he has Josh Allen torso down healthy, would also go for it. But he understood in that situation, you do not have a fully healthy and confident Josh Allen in his running ability and mobility in general. And at that point in the first half, it's not going to kill the game for you. The worst case scenario in that outcome, by punting it, is accidentally goes into the end zone. You got them at the 20. With that point, I believe that drive started with a minute 5 left on the clock. They might have had a timeout in there, I believe, in their pocket. I can't remember where the timeouts were, but regardless, start at the 20. It was well documented to a point of kicking a dead horse that they had a kicker that was capable of kicking ones that were further than usual. But overall, it's like, make them get a couple first downs, make them still do things from the 20. Best case scenario, when you punt it, you obviously do exactly pretty much what you did. You pin them. It was documented at the 3. It felt like it should have been at the 1. I don't know what happened there. We'll just call it for what it is. It must have just barely touched the out of bounds, not at the 4, but at the 3 before going out at the 1. And if you go for it, though, in that situation where you punt it, it's like you kind of already handed them a field goal if you believe their kicker makes that. Like, that's their kicker, it sounds like and feels like, and we've seen it, is capable of kicking it if they were not to move the ball forward from that position and could immediately just kick it through the uprights from any distance possible. So it's one of those things in those rare moments where I am all for aggressive play calling, but understanding your quarterback's not doing great and you're trying to almost get to halftime healthy. You're getting the ball to start second half for what it's worth. And 4th and 4 is by far not a gimme. And you can either have them start this drive with a minute left, worst case on their 20, best case you pinned them on the 1, rather than giving it to them essentially at midfield. It's, to me, you tip it to that side because you're living to fight another down. And it took, for what it's worth, if you're going to be revisionist, it took a miracle throw, a miracle run by all 11 players on the field to spike a ball with what the refs claim to be still a second on the clock. I would like to see pure, clear evidence of that being the case, where also the right tackle is fully set by rule for a full second. That is the rule. That is how that's supposed to happen. I have yet to see evidence of that. But regardless, ball don't lie. He bangs the upright, and apparently this kicker can't just make every field goal as soon as it's placed on a football field. So, yeah, I have no problem with anything. And the cherry on top to me is the challenge in the first half. That is a play that I think when McDermott's not in his bag and comfortable, I would say he would also be like, hey, well, not yet. It's not. It reminds me of the Butte drop in the Patriots game late in the season, where it's like, oh, it's still early on. It's not worth the risk. It's like, no, it is. This is a crucial moment. Now, this one was even more crucial because it was a fourth down and it felt a lot more clear evidence to it. So I'm sure he got word from above, hey, absolutely throw the flag. But it does feel like McDermott sometimes gets a little bit tight on the grip when it comes to his challenge flag. And I loved seeing him be loose enough and aggressive enough to understand that, look, let's say the reality of the situation is that McDermott doesn't win that challenge. They don't have enough evidence to overturn it. They allow the first down to stand, whatever it is, you lose a timeout. So what? Like, so what in that moment? It's like that timeout is not nearly worth what the potential overturn is for that situation, like we saw. So I'm glad he understood that. And the way he managed the game overall, I genuinely don't really have too much criticism. And that is with understanding he wasn't nearly as aggressive as I would believe he normally would be with a healthy Josh Allen, and just in general, and what I normally like. I just think this game truly felt like one where drive to drive, there wasn't, a set goal and formula to go through the entirety of 60 minutes. You truly had to play each drive individually and understand. And almost McDermott understood the emotions and rhythm of the game. I think that is truly a big factor in that. And that's something that I think normally the emotions of a game can get to him. This is one where I think he balanced it very well in understanding when to be aggressive, when to do things and push the button, and then also when to maybe be a little bit more on the conservative side because it feels like things are tempered. The moment isn't getting to him and it's not getting to them as well. And it's just, let's just continue churning the machine that is this game overall and just move on and move forward. I'm all for how McDermott played this game, and I definitely think he was a massive asset comparative to, his counterpart on the other sideline.
All right, so we agree Allen had a good day. I mean, imagine if I came on here and I was like, I didn't like Allen's game, Luka. McDermott had a good day. I think also had a good day? Brandon Beane. And let me explain what I mean by that. We've talked all offseason about how this team has limited resources, and certainly Brandon Beane wears a lot of that responsibility because he's in the business of resource management. But this team had a lot of needs pop up both mid-season because of injury, right before the season, and Brandon Beane basically had to go to the budget store to fill in some of these holes with these limited resources. And today, his budget cornerback, Tre'Davious White, made an impact. His budget wide receiver, Brandon Cooks, made an impact. His budget safety, Jordan Poyer, was not only felt on the field, but the second he left, it was like, holy cow, that's a downgrade. His budget linebacker, Shaq Thompson, was arguably the best defensive player on the field for the Bills for most of the game today. And the kicker he had to go out and sign right before the season started, Matt Prater, was perfect on all of his kicks in a playoff game despite being injured. We've railed on Brandon Beane this season. We've sat here and rolled our eyes at the WGR comments the day it happened, and we've made our opinions heard about the wide receiver situation. But Brandon Beane is still a good GM. He's not just somebody that makes a series of nothing but wrong decisions. These scrap heap signings he made to fill holes won the game for them today, along with obviously Josh Allen. And I think today was a really good look for Brandon Beane with some of his depth moves.
Brandon Cooks and Shaq Thompson are at the absolute top of that list. It's remarkable that, Khalil Shakir is your leading receiver on the day, just happens due to 12 targets, 12 receptions for 82 yards. But the next man up, as you bring up here, Brandon Cooks, 5 targets, 3 catches, 58 yards, and one big one late that he needed to secure, one that we saw him drop on numerous occasions earlier on this season that even had you and I asking for this guy to have his ass out of there. Big time moments. And that's where I I will just say that's where the Brandon Beane guys in the know and guys in the organization and guys in the locker room. This is why they are them and they understand what they're doing, and we are just fans from the outside just looking at it from a week to week basis and what we see. That's something where we saw Brandon Cooks keep dropping things, and yet they kept giving him those opportunities and throwing the ball. One, because they didn't have anyone better to do it, but two, they understood that eventually things will happen. Brandon Cooks has been around this league for a very long time, doing the exact thing that he's doing for the Bills now, maybe a little bit long in the tooth, but he's still effective downfield and making those plays happen when he's asked to. And now it's all clicking and things are working, and that's great. Shaq Thompson, if it wasn't for Shaq Thompson, I mean, this defense would be an absolute problem. This defense would be incapable of doing quite literally anything. If it wasn't for Cole Bishop and, the secondary in general, I would say they wouldn't even be able to defend the pass. Luckily, they have those guys where maybe they'd be able to hold the fort a little bit, but the intermediate stuff, the second level things would be open in the passing game, and the run game would just be absolutely something foreign to these defenders that anytime you drop back to pass, you would actually be just gifting the Bills a play at that moment in time, which is also what it felt like today at one point when all of a sudden they would drive the ball due to the run game all the way to the 20 or so. And then you saw Trevor Lawrence starting to drop back and pass more. You're like, thank you, ? I don't understand why you're doing this, but keep it up, Jags. I understand you probably want to do it this way because you're stubborn, but I think it's, you're making the play more 50-50 rather than 60-40, we'll call it, by running the ball. And Shaq Thompson, though, is a reason that I feel that it's not 70-30, 80-20 success rate for an offense to run the ball in this defense. He has been a massive piece of it. This was a little bit of a tip of the cap to Brandon Beane in the sense of these impact players that were showing up were those, mid-season or early season kind of off the street acquisitions that you needed to just fill some gaps. And now moving forward with the injury to Gabe Davis and just injuries still popping up left and right, you need even more out of these guys. And that's the nature of the beast. And at least you're in this position now where these guys need to step up and have been here rather than needing to bargain bin shop, going into the divisional round of the playoffs due to these other injuries that are popping up. We can talk about how Keon Coleman needs to step up even more further, but I mean, outside of Shakir, if it wasn't for Brandon Cooks, man, this passing game could be a massive, massive problem where you just lost then Gabe Davis, at least a reliable set of hands that Josh Allen likes. And you're really struggling to understand who the heck is going to be out there to make a play for Josh Allen when he truly needs it. And I think that Josh Allen to Brandon Cooks play late up the seam, which the throw itself is just unbelievable. 40 yards in the air, off his back foot, just finding it with a guy up his face. It's one of those ones where that's the kind of play that then going into next week, wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden Brandon Cooks is getting more trust balls, we'll call them, from Josh Allen against whoever they're playing, because that's the kind of play that truly bonds quarterback to receiver in the trust category and really allows them to feel like, hey, in tough moments, in tough situations, in tight throws, which there was another one of those, by the way, up the sideline, off the left sideline, I believe it was, where Allen absolutely put it in a ball-sized window over a defender, down underneath, outside, where only Brandon Cooks can come down with it, yet still in bounds. Just an unreal throw. That relationship is going to be one that's even more leaned on and crucial for the Bills to have success as they continue on in this postseason.
Yeah, and Cooks was interfered with on that play and still made the catch. I mean, he's definitely evolving into the number one receiver on this team. I know Khalil Shakir led them today. We saw a couple this weekend, one being Josh Allen, one being Caleb Williams, of throws like I like to call them "this game sucks, bro" throws. And what I mean by that is anybody that's ever played Madden before, that happens against you in Madden, like the quarterback's getting hit and he still puts it on a laser 40 yards downfield without moving his feet, you just throw your controller and say, "This game sucks, bro," and turn off your PlayStation because it's not realistic. The same with the play that Caleb made last night on 4th down. But yeah, I'm glad we have that guy on our team. Let's go through some of these injuries real quick before we get into game balls and game checks because Brandon Beane's going to have some more work to do
Yeah.
after today. So before the game even started, I think we learned that Ty Johnson's injury was a little more serious than we even knew. He was seen in a walking boot coming into the stadium. He was inactive for the game. I don't know that Brandon Beane has a move to make there, but it doesn't seem like Ty Johnson's coming back anytime soon. Joshua Palmer was put on IR on Saturday to make room on the roster for some of the call-ups they had to do today, which included guys like Frank Gore. But lost in today's game, Gabe Davis, serious leg injury, won't be back probably till next season. That you hate to see that. You just hate to see it. Jordan Poyer with a hamstring injury. Generally speaking, these hamstring injuries, I mean, who knows? There's levels of severity there, but I think it's optimistic to think he'll be ready to play next week on that thing. And then what else? What else am I missing here? We have that. Oh, we have you just mentioned it. Oh, Gabe Davis, the wide receiver. Is that it? I mean, Allen got dinged like 4 times in the game, but he's going to be fine. Nobody else left, right?
No one else left but the Allen one. Even with all these other, like Gabe Davis is everything. Yeah, you just saw it too. Gabe Davis, that one is, as clear as clear. We're waiting for the confirmation that, something bad has happened to his knee. He will be out for the remainder of this postseason, you would imagine, things like that. And even with all of that said, the number one thing everyone's going to have an eye on is Allen's left knee, Allen's throwing hand. Allen's right foot is still a point of conversation. Allen's ear, if you really want to dive into that one, when it was bleeding after that concussion check, it was not bleeding because of a concussion. It was probably more so from just his helmet rubbing off weirdly due to it being rolled over through a defensive lineman's knee on top of it. There's a lot of question marks with it. And when it comes to the injuries, at this point in time, like, the conversation is going to be like, hey, Mecole Hardman, you're going to be called up now. You're the next man up in the receiver room at this point in time. And the receiver room has gotten all of a sudden very small, Josh. It's very, very strange where you go from Josh Palmer and Gabe Davis being options to now having Brandon Cooks out there, who's not the, tallest individual. Mecole Hardman out there, not the tallest individual. Your big boys are now just Keon and Shavers. That's pretty much it. That's the entirety of your height at the receiver position. You're going to have to get in your bag here when it comes to crafting up offensive plays, because your jump ball options, your contested traffic options are becoming limited by the day. If you are Joe Brady, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and these Buffalo Bills. So the injuries suck. When it comes to the Jordan Poyer one, when you hear hamstring, I will just say this. For him at his age, it's funny. It feels like it's one of those things where we all understand it as Bills fans that was definitely a dip in play. And now you have a rookie in Jordan Hancock coming in and needing to, do some serious work at that safety position. And I will say, if Hancock is going to be leaned on going into next week, because Poyer with a hamstring thing might truly keep him out for a week at least. I'm going to try to reserve my criticism for him as much as possible. I want everyone, and this is the time to say it, to understand a McDermott defense for safeties might be one of the most difficult things to do in defense in general in this league. There is a reason you see a lot of rookies and young players come into a McDermott defense and really not make an impact that first year. And it definitely happens a lot at the safety position, because the rules and assignments and needed things that are asked of from a safety in this defensive scheme have to be crazy extensive. It has to be, this is me just outside looking in, but there's a reason you see a flip switch with Cole Bishop. There's a reason that even like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are very smart players that had been around the league for a very long time. Then all of a sudden they come to the Bills. They were okay that first year with this. And they were like, you're like, oh, wow, we have some pretty good safeties here. But then that next year is when you saw them become the all pro players that they were. It's just one of those things where I feel bad that Hancock's going to be thrown in there potentially as a rookie in very, very important games. But I'm also fully expecting there to be some, growing pain issues there that hopefully McDermott, Babbage, and the defensive staff are going to do their damn best to kind of disguise it. And if, as weird as this is going to sound, if DeMar Hamlin is available by any chance and stuff like that, where at least someone that understands the rules a little bit better is available to be back there for this team, yeah, let's maybe explore that option for certain packages, for certain looks, things like that, where those kinds of pre-snap reads are going to be necessary from that safety position on the fly a little bit more, because I think those are the moments. Like Jordan Hancock's fully capable. He's a willing tackler. He's a great athlete, things like that. But when all of a sudden you have these situations where he needs to make decisions on what his assignment is and what his responsibility is in the last 7 seconds of a play clock, that's where you're seeing him get beat late, on these single high safety looks and stuff like that it just wasn't working out. So I'm not faulting him for it. He's being thrown in a position that's very difficult, and he's a rookie on a defense that is hard to understand. I'm just going to have to bite my tongue if we have to go through the growing pains here in a divisional round playoff game. It's going to be a tough watch at times, I imagine.
You mentioned DeMar Hamlin. The Bills did open his 3-week practice window. That's certainly an avenue they could go. I would probably predict Luka, and again, I'm not sitting here picking on Jordan Hancock. I'm actually optimistic that Jordan Hancock is going to be competing for the starting safety position opposite Cole Bishop with probably another draft pick and maybe a veteran. Who knows? But next season, I would probably predict right now that if DeMar Hamlin can't go and Poyer can't go, that I would bet the Bills ramp up Cam Lewis for that spot next week. I think maybe they saw a little bit too much ground given up. The game seemed a little bit too big for him, and in fairness, we saw that with Cole Bishop last year. His head was swimming when he was out there, and that's okay. Cam Lewis right now is the primary backup slot corner, and that may just not be a luxury the Bills can have right now. They may need him to be on the field as a safety opposite Bishop. At receiver, you mentioned it, the easy move one is Coleman's going to continue to be activated. That was in substitution for Palmer. And then now with Gabe Davis out, Hardman's the move. Unless, remember this guy, folks, unless Curtis Samuel has been healthy this whole time and the Bills have just been waiting to break the glass. Which 2 games do we want to use him for before he's gone? This would be a great time. So they do have options, but at this point, they're starting to run out of depth. They really can't afford too many more injuries. It's not bleak, okay? Their offensive line's intact. Their tight ends are intact, we think. Kincaid was seen in a walking boot on Instagram that looks mostly precautionary. Their top running back is healthy. Ty Johnson's not. Their receivers aren't really special anyway, but Shakir and Shavers and Coleman are healthy. So I guess and Cooks are healthy. And, Bosa and Rousseau are healthy. Oliver could be back soon. I mean, that would be fantastic. But, it's the playoffs. It's a war of attrition. It's hard to complain when we saw a team like the Niners lose George Kittle today. All right. Well, Luka, it's time for our favorite segment of the week, game balls and game checks. Who gets your game ball for the Bills' victory on the road in the playoffs over the Jacksonville Jaguars today?
And as highlighted as always, if you're new to this, Josh Allen is not available to be selected for this, because this would be yet another in the long list of Josh Allen performances that he would qualify. I think there's a few candidates here, and I really, and I'm going to steal one of your shout outs, but I really wanted to use this for Cole Bishop just because he's becoming yet again one of my horses back there. There's certain players that, and Josh understands, there are certain guys at certain positions that I just enjoy watching. I will sit there, believe it or not, people, I will sit there on a defensive snap and my eyes are just sitting there on 24. I'm not even looking at the ball on the snap sometimes. I'm just I see Cole Bishop moving at the line of scrimmage. I see Cole Bishop at his typical, base safety position, whatever it is. And I'm just watching him on the play. I'm doing this watching game broadcast. And I think Cole Bishop had a very strong game, of course, and it was beautiful for him to get the game sealing interception off of a tip. It's not like he had to do anything crazy. He was the right place at the right time. He even said that in his post game interview, but also it's you love seeing players like Cole Bishop who do their job, play in, play out, get rewarded even for something like that, so that they have that interception on their stat line because they absolutely deserve it. So stealing one of your shout outs, Cole Bishop gets a shout out, but I'm going to give this to Brandon Cooks. I just think that play late to me, there was a guy at the similar position, of course, that I might have done over here just for straight production value. But Brandon Cooks making that catch when he did, and also making the catch that somehow got overturned to not be a catch that it might have not been a catch. I just wanted a definitive angle that shows me it. I have yet to see one. I'm just going to say it that way. But to make the big catch late when Josh Allen just basically throws a F word, he's got to be down there and he's got to be open, because there's no way at the point of release that he truly believed Brandon Cooks was going to be that open. He just understood that he could potentially be open at that moment in time, and there was nothing better for him to do. And to come down with that ball. And that was the moment where, going into that drive, I told Josh this off air, the irony of us going into the theory or the hypothetical of, if you are the team up 4 or down 4 with 4 minutes left, what would you rather be? And I was documented saying I'd like to be the team down with Josh Allen having the ball. Well, I was like, holy shit, guess what? We're in that exact reality right now, folks. And the moment that happened to kind of turn it from I'm confident in this to, yep, this is actually going to happen, was that exact play. And you need players to make the play for you, especially when Josh Allen's trusting you. Brandon Cooks, a man who had dropped multiples of those balls earlier this season, did show recently that he was then starting to catch them. Now did it in a big moment on the road in the playoffs that it's hard for me to go anywhere else with my game ball. I mentioned my shout out, but Brandon Cooks, you get my game ball, sir.
Yeah, that's a good one. There's another player I forgot about in the Brandon Bean signing that we're gonna get to too. But there's two guys I really want to give it to. And you mentioned a couple. One of them is Shaq Thompson. Just what a beast. He was seemingly in the first half the only, Milano was too, but like the only two guys in the front seven that were really thinking that the Jaguars could run the ball. And then he had multiple near interceptions, Johnny on the spot for the one, and just has been an absolute game changer for this defense. And I think from start to finish was the Bills' best defensive player today. However, I'm going to give my game ball to Tre'Davious White, because while I thought he had a good game, I thought Shaq Thompson's game was as good as anybody from start to finish. Trey White's biggest plays came in the biggest moments, when he broke up what would have been a touchdown pass to Britton Strange. Just an absolute zone awareness. I know this defense like the back of my hand. I know I can get creative if I need to. What a play by him. And then the next drive, the tipped ball for Jacoby Myers that ultimately gets intercepted by Luka's game ball winner, Cole Bishop. So, those two guys get it. Another guy I'd really like to shout out is Matt Prater. We know the injury he was dealing with. The Bills elected not to bring up Matthew Wright. Prater went 2 for 2 with a 44 and a 50-yard field goal, was also big on all three of his extra points. And I'm telling you right now, at the end of the game, I was nervous on that extra point. I just was, because you go up by 2 there, it feels like it's a death sentence. And Matt Prater nailed it. There's a couple other guys I wouldn't mind mentioning. I mean, these guys aren't going to get game balls, but another name I'd like to point out for Brandon Bean is this Sam Franklin on special teams. I can't remember. This must be what as Diggs is about to. Okay. This must be what Bills fans of a certain age felt like watching Tasker out there. I legitimately enjoy watching Sam Franklin cover kicks. He is one. He brings a thump whenever he gets there. I know he's a DB, but he's built like a linebacker. He's got an attitude out there, and he seems to always win his matchup and is Johnny on the spot. And another player on the Bills who I know he was a preseason darling, but has become one of the best special teams players on the team, Buffalo Joe Andreessen, another beast on special teams. But yeah, Sam Franklin has just become like a joy to watch. Like, oh, we're punting? It's Sam Franklin time. All right. So with the good, there's got to be some bad. Yes, some bad, even in a playoff victory. Luka, who gets your game check for the Bills' victory today?
Ooh, it's hard to criticize anyone in a game like this. And the best part is you can't even do any of your typical scapegoats. Like, for instance, can't even scapegoat Frank Gore Jr. Guy's asked to go in there in a situation after Ray Davis is a little bit shaken up and stuff, and he catches a pass for 6 yards. I mean, geez. First, one of your rare moments of actually getting game action and you catch a pass for 6 yards. It's impressive for Frank Gore Jr. Game check award. It's very, very difficult for me. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna go with Joey Bosa. I'm gonna go with Joey Bosa here, and the reason for it is kind of more what he stands for, and the reasoning of why I'm saying this. I just think Joey Bosa is not here to defend the run. I would just like you to do it a little bit better than what you just showed today. And on top of it all, the cherry is I don't need to see you getting. It's about to drop a very unnecessarily loud F-bomb. I don't need to see you getting depleted by Jacoby Myers. Like, that is just not a good look. If you are, was he even aware that Jacoby Myers was there to engage him in a block? No. I mean, it's, leverage is a lot when it comes to football. And I mean, Myers definitely surprised him on that kind of seal block that it was for the edge. But still a not great look if you're Joey Bosa. You are a large human being playing that edge position. I think a receiver should not be capable of doing what he did to you. So had a little bit of a weaker game in his mind. The narrative for him coming into this was, he felt as healthy as he ever has going into a playoff game and in a playoff run. You would like to see him make more of an impact in the pass rush and everything like that. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the box score, and real quick here, I don't believe he even registered anything to be on the box score. So that's a tough look in my opinion. But I will say this, it's not that his impact wasn't fully felt. I did see or notice him at least at some points in the pass rush, at least doing his job appropriately. But overall, I'd like to see you make a little bit more of an impact and not be such a liability in the run defend game that you were today. So Joey Bosa, you are going to get my game check award.
He was one of two that I was thinking of. I think it's a great call. I'm doing some math here because I want to make sure my numbers are right. Okay, it's not as egregious as I thought, but I'm still going to give it to him. I'm going to go with Ray Davis, and not for, I guess kind of for the reasons we used to give it to him. One, I know he fumbled the ball on the kick return and the Bills survived it, but I just didn't like the whole decision-making process there. You catch the ball in the end zone, it's kind of a gift. You automatically get the ball at the 35-yard line. And I understand he's an all-pro kick returner and he gives us a chance at an explosive play. I don't trust referees on kick returns. I feel like anytime there's a big kick, they're just itching to throw a flag anyway, and you're just begging to have it come back to the 10. So I didn't like the decision. I didn't like the fumble, but ultimately the reason why he's getting my game check, Luka, is on a day when Ty Johnson wasn't healthy, Ray Davis didn't register a single touch, not a carry, not a catch. Now, I went into PFF to make sure, like, did he even like play on offense? He did. He played 16 of the 63 snaps, and I saw him out there several times, but it certainly wasn't the enhanced offensive role that I expected out of Ray Davis. And it's not that I think that he played bad. I don't think a lot of guys played bad. Bosa probably would have been my pick had you not taken him, or Epinesa. I thought both those guys looked very lost at times against the run. But for that, I'm just going to go with Ray Davis. A little confused, and I think we're going to need to see more out of him going forward in this playoff run if the Bills are going to be moving forward without Ty Johnson. All right, Luka. Well, we do not know what's next for the Bills. We do know that as we are recording this, the Patriots have a 9-3 lead over the LA Chargers, which means that if the Patriots hold on to win this game, the Bills will be en route to Denver, and we assume that game would be on Saturday, just because the Sunday AFC game is going to probably be the Steelers or the Texans since they play tomorrow. Now, they have at times put both AFC games on Sunday and both NFC games on Saturday. So who knows? But it looks like if that goes down, it will be Bills Broncos. If the Chargers come back and win this game, then the Bills will be waiting for the outcome of tomorrow night's game to figure out who they're visiting in round number 2. And the Chargers, just as a reminder, are the Bills' only hope for hosting a playoff game. And that hope is slowly but surely running out. All right. Luka, any final thoughts before we put a bow on this episode, survive in advance, and start looking ahead?
It feels good to get through this first one that felt like the weight of the world, weirdly enough, was on this team more than it kind of should have been for a 6 seed. But now I just look forward to another week of playing playoff games when it comes to the Bills. And overall, I am very much looking forward to kind of wherever the path may be. I feel even better about this team's capabilities of being resilient and getting results when they need them. That bring on whoever it asks for. You know, whoever we have to play. If we're going to Mile High to play Denver, if we're going to Houston, if we're going to Pittsburgh, whatever it is, I very much look forward to the challenge. And overall, I look forward. The most important thing, Josh, is I look forward to spending another Wednesday night with you live for Bills Chat Live as we talk about more meaningful Bills football. And oh, by the way, the Sabres have won 13 of their last 14. So that's just a nice, sweet little cherry on top to all Buffalo sports.
Have you thought about, if the Bills win the Super Bowl, maybe not going all in on buying Bills Super Bowl merch, because you know that this summer you'll have to save up for Sabres Stanley Cup merch? Have you thought about that, or are you going to give yourself some time to marinate?
They do like a split Lombardi and Stanley Cup. You know, Buffalo is champion town, or you know, where champions are thrive, or champions are born, whatever it is. Yeah, no, I'm not going to hold my breath on a Sabres Stanley Cup. Let me just put that into space here. I'm not going to sit here and all of a sudden, just because you're winning a bunch of games in December and going into January, we're talking cup. But also at the same time here, this team plays pretty good hockey right now.
The playoff drought at least looks like it's at least in jeopardy of being over with, as Justin Herbert is just not a clutch quarterback. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on the Sabres there.
No, you're good. The last note on the Sabres, if you are anyone out there that doesn't give a shit about hockey and you love your Bills football, just keep rooting for the Sabres, because if the Sabres were to finally end this drought, there is only one North American sports team that has a drought as long as it is not making the playoffs, and that is your New York Football Jets. So just remember, the Sabres and Jets have this hand-in-hand playoff drought streak going on right now, which you kind of give the tip of the misery to the Sabres, because it's a lot easier to make the NHL playoffs than it is the NFL playoffs. But if the Sabres were to finally break that and get back into the postseason, folks, the Jets would stand alone as the longest postseason drought in North American sports. So just that little caveat there, that if you don't care about hockey, at least still root for it, because the Sabres breaking that would bring football joy to you and I as well.
Speaking of streaks and speaking of football joy, with the win today, the Bills have now made it to the divisional round of the playoffs 6 straight years, which is the longest active streak in the NFL. Up until last year, they were tied with the Chiefs, but rumor has it the Chiefs did not make the playoffs this year. Sucks to be them. All right. Well, Luka, I had so much fun today. Let's do it again next week.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, Luka mentioned it, Bills Chat Live. That's your opportunity to come in and chat with us live. And we love it. Come interact with us. Let us know how you're feeling. We know it's going to be a big week this week as far as injuries go. I'll be back next week, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, for Bills Chat halftime show. Not going to say the thing, but today was a good one. Let's keep it going. And then Luka and I'll be back at least for one more week, hopefully a couple more after that. But for Luka, I am Josh McCarty. The Bills advance to the divisional round, and we will talk to you next week on Bills Chat.